Next up, in fact, we do have Susan Jones. Susan, who are you? Where are you? How do you know Don, and what's your story?
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. And before I start, let me just say Jim Carey is the only person with whom I've ever spent an entire Northwestern football game talking about IMC and not looking at the field. So we really could get into it.
Well, Susan, of course, realizes that the subtext of that meeting was to enable me to steal my first syllabus from her.
Yes.
So she was very thoughtful about that and very generous.
So thank you. My name is Susan K. Jones. I'm a professor of marketing at Ferris State University in Big Rapids, Michigan. I'm coming to you today from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I live. I have my BS in advertising and my MS in advertising from Northwestern. I won't say what year, but it was before Don got there. Heidi, I don't think we've met, but I do want you to know what an incredible positive influence Don has been on my life. I want you to know that. In the mid-1980s, I was very involved with the Chicago Association of Direct Marketing, as was Jim and many others in the, at that time, direct marketing community in Chicago, and something called the CADM Educational Foundation was being started. Why was it being started? In large measure because Don Schultz was working so closely with that organization to have us help start what was then the direct marketing master's program. And that program did start with a bang. And when they were looking for professors for it, well, I was not much of a teacher at the time. I had taught as an adjunct at Aquinas College here in Grand Rapids, but I knew Don slightly, and I contacted him and said, I'd like to teach direct marketing creative strategy. And he championed that. I don't think that was an easy sell. Who the heck is this woman from Grand Rapids? But he did champion that. I did it for 4 years, and I would drive over to Evanston, which I think showed how much I really wanted to do it. Both Phil and Clark mentioned that a great IMC book, and I have to say, literally, when I read that book, there was a light bulb over my head. This made so much sense. And I've used that book ever since and the concepts of it, of course. I did get Ferris State to change the name of our program to Advertising/IMC after championing and evangelizing this for years. Don was always so responsive. I remember I saw him back when there were phone booths, so obviously this is a while back. We're both at a bank of phones at a hotel. He said to whoever he was talking to, hold on just a second. And he said, Susan, I just wanted to let you know, I read your column in the CADM newsletter and I really like it. I mean, he didn't have to do that. That was such a boost to me. So another thing that happened, working with Steve Kelly at DePaul University in the early 90s, we started putting out a book called the IMC Handbook. We reached out to Don to ask him if he would do a reading on what is IMC. And of course, he didn't just say yes, he grilled me about, is this really going to be an IMC book? Show me what's going to be in it and so on. We did the same thing when we had the idea for the International Journal of IMC. And as someone mentioned, I think it was Phil, this is the guy you want to have involved with your journal. So he said yes after he was grilling us about what the journal was going to be like. One other thing, Steve Kelly and I, every year until recently, put on IMC roundtables in Chicago in the summer. And Don and Martin would always come to these. They always had a new paper, but they never took themselves seriously. They'd get up there and say, well, aw shucks, I'm going to tell you about this, but let me know what you think about it. And I'll never forget one day he just stood up and he said, why is a frequency of 3 sacred? Who made that up? Why, the 4 Ps are a bunch of baloney. He would always say things like that just to see what people's reactions would be. And so the last thing I'm going to say is 2 years ago, Steve Kelly and I put out a book called the IMC Source Book. We asked Don if he would update his IMC reading, and he said, nah, I'm past that. So what he wrote was, and this is so Don, the name of the reading he wrote was The Future of Advertising, or whatever we're going to call it. Thank you, Jim, for letting me be part of this.
Oh, well, thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks for your contributions. I've long suspected that the reason that Don and Heidi kept me around because I would say things to Don she wanted to say, but she needed to be married. And Don kept me around because we have the same favorite mortal sin, which is blasphemy. And how much courage it is to stand up in a room and say something that you know will be unpopular and think it's fun.